Well, good morning. I thought I would share again from the scriptures and part of the daily reading plan for Holy Week as we look at some of these teachings of Jesus prior to his arrest and the crucifixion. One of the passages in our reading plan for today is from Mark chapter 12. And in Mark 12, verses 18 through 27, we read this. And Sadducees came to him who say there is no resurrection, and they asked him a question, saying, Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies and leaves a wife, but leaves no child, the man must take the widow and raise up offspring for his brother. There were 7 brothers. The first took a wife, and when he died, left no offspring. And the second took her, and died, leaving no offspring. And the third likewise, and the 7 left no offspring. Last of all, the woman also died in the resurrection when they rise again, whose wife will she be? For the 7 had her as wife. Jesus said to them, Is this not the reason you are wrong, because you know neither the Scriptures nor the power of God? For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. And as for the dead being raised, have you not read in the book of Moses, in the passage about the bush, how God spoke to him, saying, I am the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. You are quite wrong. So we'll stop there. So these Sadducees, again, the Jewish leaders are trying to trick Jesus. They're trying to get him, trip him up and trying to figure him out. Well, here the Sadducees are asking about who, by the way, they don't believe in any kind of resurrection. When you die, and that's it. So anyway, they're asking Jesus about this Jewish law that required that if a husband and wife were married, they didn't have any kids, the husband dies, well, the wife is supposed to marry brother of the guy who died so that the lineage can be carried on. This Jewish lineage can carry on of the brother, right? So anyway, so they're saying, these 7 married this woman, 7 brothers, and they never had children, and they all died. Well, whose wife is she going to be in the resurrection? Or shall we just say in heaven? And Jesus says, this isn't how it goes, basically. He's like, for when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels in heaven. So some people will read this and get pretty, upset because they're like, are you saying that when I go to heaven, my wife and I aren't going to be married any longer? That's just terrible. What a horrible thing. Don't we say that, hey, when people die and go to heaven, isn't it, we'll say something like, oh, they're reunited with their loved ones now. So does this say they're not reunited with their loved ones? What this says is marriage is going to be different in heaven, basically. I don't know if any of you have read the book, and I've talked about it before, but it's Randy Alcorn's book on heaven. A fantastic book, very biblical, top-notch. The resource on heaven if you ever want to know about heaven and just do a study on it. This is fantastic. But he talks about this passage right here and about this idea. And there are other Gospels that mention this same story. But he says there's a great deal of regret and misunderstanding about this passage. A woman wrote me, I struggle with the idea that there won't be marriage in heaven. I believe I'll really miss it. And he says, but the Bible does not teach there will be no marriage in heaven. In fact, it makes it clear there will be marriage in heaven. What it says that there will be one marriage between Christ and his bride, and we'll be part of it. Paul links human marriage to a higher reality it mirrors. As he says in Ephesians 5, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. So he goes on to say, the one flesh marital union we know on earth is a signpost pointing to our relationship with Christ as our bridegroom. Once we reach the destination, the signpost becomes unnecessary. Let me repeat that. Once we reach the destination, the signpost becomes unnecessary. That one marriage, our marriage to Christ, will be so completely satisfying that even the most wonderful earthly marriage couldn't be as fulfilling. So, it's this interesting teaching and truth that once we get to heaven, our earthly marriage, which is this picture of Christ and His church, according to Ephesians, it's shared at many weddings, that same passage. Our new marriage will be that, between Christ and us, as we're called the bridegroom, or we are His bride. He is the bridegroom. We'll be united to Him, and it will be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Will we know our spouse in heaven? I believe we will. I think we'll know. I think I'll know my bride in heaven, my earthly bride in heaven. But the fulfillment and need for that relationship will be so different because we will be so complete once we enter into that glorious place, heaven, glory. Have a great week, you all. Keep pursuing Jesus. Keep getting closer and closer to Him as we get closer and closer to Resurrection Sunday.